Welcome to the Daily Exchange! Guys, we're here with Tron Black. We're talking about Ravencoin and everything there is to do with it. We'll see you guys right after this. Alright guys, welcome back. We're here with Tron Black, the principal software developer at Medici Ventures and Ravencoin's lead developer. Welcome to the Daily Exchange.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's awesome. Tron has just flown in, so we apologize about Australia already, so sorry about that.
No, I apologize if I'm a little dazed. I've just flown for like 20 some odd hours.
Awesome stuff. Now, a bit of background. You're one of the lead developers at Medici Ventures, so that's with Overstock.com, Patrick Byrne. Now, obviously working with Bruce Fenton on Ravencoin.
Yep.
And Ravencoin, incredible performance of recent, up 15% today, up about 400% in the last few weeks. Definitely one of the coins to watch, and we've got some interesting bits and pieces here. You can see Ravencoin is part of a number of different ventures of Medici Ventures. We've got a little picture here, a diagram. There's tZero, Factum, cryptocurrency, Medici Land Governance. Obviously, Medici is quite a busy place.
Yes.
To work.
Yeah, it's a great place to work.
Tell us, Tron. For everyone, what is Ravencoin?
Yeah, so Ravencoin is a platform to create your own assets. So if you're familiar with Counterparty, Mastercoin, now Omni, that Tether runs on top of, or Open Assets, or even the ERC20, those are platforms, and so you can create your own assets. It costs 500 Raven. Those Raven are burned. And you create an asset. So it was a fork, originally a code fork, not a chain fork. So you didn't get a bunch of, if you had Bitcoin, you didn't get a bunch of Raven. We just used that solid code base of Bitcoin. And then on top of that, we built the ability to create your own assets and also sub-assets and also unique assets. So that's really what Ravencoin is.
Brilliant.
Yep.
Now, what's the one thing, I guess, you want people to know about Ravencoin?
Yep. So the main thing I would say is that it is a platform. So you have the ability to build on top of it. Bitcoin is more like a coin, Litecoin more like a coin. So it has a value. You can trade it, store value. You can use it as money. That's true of Ravencoin, the coin. But then it's also a platform where you can create assets on top of that by really, you can do it on Linux, Windows, Mac, iOS, Android is, you can use, we have an Android wallet, but we also have the ability to add assets coming soon, and then also on web. So we have all 6 platforms, and you can create it. But then we also have a dev kit. So we have a dev kit, which allows you to build on top of it. It's Node, and it talks to the Raven D, and then you can build on top of that, and you can build websites, and other people are already building on top of it. So that it is a platform and not just a coin is probably the most important element.
Brilliant. So developers, get out there and download the dev kit because it's great stuff. But let's take a step back.
Yep.
What's the story of Ravencoin? How did it come about?
Yeah, it came about. It was actually kind of the brainchild of Bruce Fenton, former executive director of the Bitcoin Foundation, longtime stockbroker, licensed, regulated for a long time, and he's also on the board of Medici. And he came up with this idea of having this coin and having a platform and being able to issue assets and things like that. And he talked to Patrick, and so Patrick was willing to help contribute and fund the development of it. And when I heard that was a possibility, I said, that's something I really, really want to be involved in. And so I asked, and that's how it happened. So
brilliant.
Yeah.
Now, Ravencoin is I guess part of, in some way, Medici Ventures. Maybe can you talk about like your involvement with Ravencoin and how that sort of works?
Sure. So I'm a principal developer at Medici, so I get to work on a lot of really cool projects, and we have lots of different projects. There's like 20 portfolio companies. Some of them are ones that we just own a small percentage of. Some of them we own large percentage of. Some of them we own a small percentage, but then we provide the development for them. We actually have teams, and so I get to help and kind of contribute to the teams and help do design and things like that. So. It's a little different. I would say Ravencoin doesn't fit into that model. Ravencoin's a little bit of a different animal. It's mostly community driven. And so There's a few of us that get to work on it. And somebody has to be in charge of the GitHub. We don't want a wallet stealer coming in. So we have to check, make sure even contributions are safe and that it makes sense and things like that. If people have features and they need and they're willing to write pull requests and write those and get them in and they're safe, we'll allow those things in. So that's kind of our role in addition to kind of driving the roadmap.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And maybe tell because it'd be great to understand that, because I think one of the key differences of Ravencoin, there was no ICO,
right?
And it's I guess it has that decentralized team.
Yep.
Can you talk a bit about that? How does the development work?
Yep.
And that environment of how that's sort of what's that ecosystem like?
Yep. So on purpose, there was no money raised for this. There was no ICO, no developer set aside, no pre-mine. So when it started, it was announced, to as many channels as we had access to. It was Bruce Fenton announced it, and the date it announced, and Twitter stuff went out, and we got that going, and so people mined it. So that was the only way to get Ravencoin, was to mine it. So I mined some, other people mined some. We got mining kind of spun up pretty quick. When we started, the only way to mine it was with CPUs, and that was another thing we changed. We changed the algorithm in Ravencoin, so it actually has 16 rotating algorithms, and so there was no GPU capabilities for that at first. Took about maybe 3 or 4 weeks, and then there was sort of half implemented GPU capability, and then it got better and better, and now it's GPUs, and there's even, I think, an FPGA implementation. But one of the things we're trying to do is also prevent, we really don't want ASICs on it. We don't want this to kind of get centralized into just big data centers coming from like a single source. So that's one of our goals, and one of the reasons. But that's how it started. So everybody could mine it, and people with laptops could just hit a button. In fact, when you just install the software with one thread or one CPU, it would mine Ravencoin when you fired it up. So that's how it got launched, and then it's just grown from there.
Brilliant. Tell us about the tokenomics of Ravencoin. How does that sort of work?
Okay, so there are a lot of tokens. There's a pretty strong issuance schedule. We modified Bitcoin code, and we did 100x the issuance. So Bitcoin started with 50 every 10 minutes, and we did 5,000. But then also every minute. So there's actually 1,000x the issuance. So there will eventually be, just like Bitcoin has 21 million with an M, Ravencoin will have 21 billion with a B. About 3.1, 3.2 billion have been issued so far. There'll be more. The issuance, same halving schedule as Bitcoin, so 4 years. It's more blocks because we have faster blocks. But that's the issuance schedule on that.
And then in terms of creating and maintaining value, how does that sort of work? Because there is a token burn when assets are created.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
That's right. You asked that question. I blanked. When you create assets, so this is part of that platform, is when you create an asset, it's very easy to do. You have to have 500 Raven. And then you just say, I want to create. You have to have a unique name. You can choose how many you want to create, from 1 to 21 billion of your own asset. You can say Bob Coin, I want 1 million of them. And you can say whether it's reissuable. If you leave it reissuable, you can go from 1 million and issue more later. If you say it's not reissuable, then everybody knows there will only ever be 1 million. And that's helpful in a lot of cases, right? Just like you kind of know there will never ever be more than 21 million Bitcoin. If you set a number, and it's set to not issuable, there won't ever be any more. And then you can also decide how divisible your coin is. It can be not divisible, which means you can only sell or trade or transfer whole units, or divisible to 8 decimal places, like a Satoshi, which is 8 decimal places like Bitcoin. You choose all of that, but then that 500 Raven that you spent is burned. So it's gone. It's you can see it move. You can see it go into an address that can't be spent. And so that changes the tokenomics a little bit, in that yes, there's a lot of tokens that are issued, right, and that shifts the value up and down or whatever, supply and demand. But then those coins are burned, and so those will go away. Just same way we know that some coins in like the counterparty coins, for example, right, they were burned, and so they're gone. And so that those coins are burned. And that's true of also of creating sub-assets, of creating unique assets, only it's just different numbers. Sub-assets are 100 Raven, and unique assets are 5 Raven.
Okay. And when you say unique assets, you mean like non-fungible?
Yeah, so a little bit like CryptoKitties or NFT, right? Non-fungible token. It's basically a token where you name it. It has a hashtag in it in the name, and then you know that there's only one of those. And those are particularly useful for doing things like certificates of authenticity, right? You can create one of these, tie it to an item, give it to the owner of that item, and that owner of the item could transfer it to other people. And so there's people starting to use this for potentially for wine. Other people have used it for prints where there's only 100 of them and they want to keep sure that there's no more than 100. And some other projects are using it as well.
Brilliant. And in terms of competitors, who do you see as a competitor to Ravencoin? When you look at other coins, where do you sort of, who's your cohort?
So I would say ERC20 in general, right, is another way to create a token. So I would say that, they're obviously creating more tokens on that currently. I think we have some real strong advantages. One is that we're going to be across all 6 platforms. We're a little easier to use and understand because on ERC20 you have a contract ID. 10 different coins could have the same name as you, but it's the contract ID, which would be the differentiator. But it's like this 40-character hex number, which is a little bit confusing. Whereas if you know there's only one, I don't want to say Uber's using it, but like Uber, I'm just using it as an example, right? There's only one of those, and so that's the one and not, not. So that's one of its advantages. There's a few other advantages, but I would say ERC20 is kind of the one that almost everybody's using currently because it was kind of one of the platforms that could do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, this week you've had some big news around being named the most exciting new coin of 2019 by ADVFN.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
That was pretty exciting. So that actually came through through kind of not directly to me, kind of through, they contacted through Medici's PR or Overstock's PR, and it came to me, and it's like, hey, you've won this thing. You can't tell anybody about it yet, but you won this award. And it was really exciting for me because it's like, I've known it. I've tried to tell everybody it's the most exciting coin. Now we have a panel judge, third-party verification that it's the most exciting coin. So that was awesome. And yeah, so it was, it was embargoed. We couldn't tell anybody until just recently, but it's come out now, and so it's been tweeted about and things. But yeah, it's pretty exciting. And that also, because we have no marketing department, right? We didn't have an ICO. We're not out there trying to pump stuff or anything like that. So because of that, to have somebody else go out and basically say this kind of expands the reach, because for the most part, it's just us building. And then, a few of us kind of like tweeting and things like that about it, but it kind of stays in the smaller circles of, Bruce's world and Patrick's world and my world, and then it's kind of grown and grown and grown from there really quite well, but it really isn't widely known, right? It doesn't have Bitcoin's awareness or Litecoin's awareness or things like that. So this really helped.
Brilliant. And let's talk about the roadmap for Ravencoin. So, where are we sort of at now, and where are we sort of going from here?
Yeah, so the roadmap originally was written back, and we've been executing on that. It's been going really well. The first main thing we had to do, first we had Ravencoin, the token, and so that went for a while. And then on November 5th of last year, so just, I don't know, was that like 5 months ago, we launched assets. So the ability to create assets was launched, and there's a whole story behind that, and that'll get told sometime. It was a pretty exciting event. So that was the big thing that we did. The next thing we wanted to do was messaging. So messaging is the ability. So once you create a token and and people have either bought your tokens or received their tokens or earned the tokens, then you want to talk, it might be subscriptions, it might be people who own part of your company, it could be anything. But now you want to tell them about something, either tell them about a vote, tell them about a meeting, tell them about something. And so this messaging is the ability for you as the token issuer to basically send a message to them that we want to pop up in the Linux, Mac, Windows, iOS, Android, web, to kind of pop up, hey, this message. That will also tie in with voting. So we're going to have the ability to issue tokens to the same people that have the tokens, pro rata for, if I have 10 of these, I get 10 vote tokens, and I get that pro rata vote, and then I can vote those tokens. And so be able to message them and say, hey, vote for this, send them here, vote for this, send them here.
Yes.
So those two kind of tie in together. And then also dividends or rewards, which is the ability to say potentially this entity has done something and you can reward them in other tokens that you create. So you create another token and give them these other tokens, or you could reward them in Raven, which actually has an economic value. It's traded in lots of different places and has pretty good volume right now. It's, I don't know, like in the 40 million every 24 hours kind of being traded. And so it actually has an economic value. And so being able to reward people with that. So that's being worked on. And then the newest thing that we've added to our roadmap is tags and restricted assets. And so that's going to allow us to play in the STO space, we hope.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the question I have about Ravencoin, I just want to, I think this is another one that a lot of people have is you're the lead developer, and we've got these new things, messages, dividends, tags. Tell us about the process of how this is being constructed. So are these majority being contributed by the community?
Some is.
Or
a lot of the community development has actually been kind of stuff around the core platform, and that's included we have 3 asset explorers, so the ability to kind of go look and see what assets and what addresses. We have 3 of those. The actual explorers that are out there, kind of like your Bitcoin Explorer or whatever, those are all community driven. Our Discord, our Telegram, all of these Sync, all of these are run by volunteers and volunteer moderation and things like that. So we've had we've had some issues because of that, because we're not controlling that, but good and bad, right? It's been really nice to have a community that's passionate about it. We've had some problems where people have rage quit here and there, which have caused some issues, but overall it's been great. That's where most of the stuff is. Our dividends is actually being developed by a community member right now, so that's kind of cool. And then other people have done other things that are more the localization, putting it in another language and contributions like that. And then we've also had contributions. We did a bounty for finding potential problems or bugs or whatever. And we've had some really super talented individuals win those bounties by basically finding things that could cause problems in the future, finding them early, and we fixed them, and so that's been great as well.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Who's Ravencoin sort of working with at the moment? Tell us about the sort of partners and things like that.
Yeah, so nobody has to contact us, to say, hey, we want to work with you, but we have had people contact us and say, hey, we're doing this. So we've had Assure is looking at it to do. They do SPVs, special purpose vehicles, where they have investors and things like that, and so they want to use that for the kind of the ledger tracking. We've had another project recently that wants to do certification, sort of like Carfax for guns and things like that. So that would be on ledger, kind of permanent record. Not tying it to individuals at all, because that's kind of a no-no, at least in the U.S. And so not doing that, but basically, that these updates or these fixes or these, so many rounds and things like that, sort of just a record of what's happened, tied to that. So that's another project. We also have a list, and I don't remember all of them because there's actually quite a list, but if you go to the Ravencoin wiki, we have a list of projects that are listed there that are actual kind of, there's another one that was doing like for diamonds and rubies and things like that, tying the documents to an asset and to an asset that they've issued, and then tying those documents, and then basically doing kind of proof of authenticity for rare gems and things like that. So lots of different projects. I don't think we know all of them. We monitor the assets that are being created just to kind of see if we can tell what's going on. But for the most part, we don't have too much time to find out all the projects that are happening.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just going to touch on, just quickly, there is another company in Medici Ventures. I know it's hard for you to talk about other companies, so I don't expect you to, but just there's tZero, which is a security token exchange. And I guess I know it's hard to talk about Tron, but what are sort of some of the products that tZero you think will issue?
Yeah.
and will there be STOs and things like that?
Sure. So I think the ultimate goal, and I don't want to get ahead of anything that's been announced, so the best place to check would be the quarterly earnings things. But the overall the goal for tZero is to be a regulated entity that can trade tokens. I mean that's sort of the goal, and there's a lot of legal stuff that goes on in that, and we're going kind of straight down the road, making sure that's completely legal. And so, as far as which projects, I think it will be ones, at least in the U.S., that have kind of like issued under the the right legal standards and things like that. So, and then once all the pieces have come together, the legal work and things like that for tZero, it'll be the ability to trade those. So,
okay.
Yeah.
And then talking about now, I guess Medici Ventures. Maybe you can help everyone understand, because there's a lot of companies in there, and obviously you work with Patrick and things like that in there. What's it like to work in Medici?
Yeah, it's actually really, really awesome. I mean, one of the things that we were able to do as a company is the employees were brought together and say, what are we, what do we want to have our mission statement? What do we want to be? And so we have this mission statement that was kind of written by, collectively us, and it's changed the world using blockchain technology, and so I mean that's really what we're doing. And so these projects that we're invested in, that they had to. This was Patrick's vision was that they were going to fall into 6 categories. So those are money and banking, identity, supply chain, land governance, voting, and capital markets. So any investments we did, we said, all right, this fits in one of our 6 pillars. And some of them we have a larger stake in, some of them we have a smaller stake, and then they earn, we do some of the development for those companies. But they really are kind of changed the world. And then if you haven't watched Patrick's talk, he's given it, I believe these are public and you can find them online, but it's basically taking these 6 pillars and the companies that fall into those and building a tech stack for civilization. So the ability to take all of these together, right? So you have these layers. So you have identity, and then on top of that, you have land governance, and you have the ability to borrow against that. Once you put that, we've documented that land and the ownership of that land, then you can borrow against it. So that's freeing up capital, and then you have voting, and so this stack or this layer you can basically plug into a country almost the same way that a country kind of skips maybe landlines and kind of went straight to cell phones. You could kind of have them just take this blockchain tech stack and kind of leapfrog ahead of other countries. So that's one of the visions, and so I get to help with that. So.
That's absolutely brilliant. Yeah, and I guess maybe you can talk specifically, I guess, for Ravencoin. Yep. Where does that sit in Medici Ventures? How does that? Yeah.
So Patrick mentioned this in the earnings call that it fits in some of the companies. As the developer of Ravencoin, I don't get to say you have to do this, but some of the places it does seem to fit well would be we have Spera, which is helping with the unbanked, and so that's kind of helpful. The ability to kind of move money and things like that, and people getting paid when they don't have access to the bank account. Grain chain is another. It's a supply chain thing for grain, and they're looking at it. Vincent is already using it, so this is wine futures. So people purchase, and this is available now on Android and iOS. You can just plug here, but you can go download this, and you can buy wine futures. Wine futures is wine that is already in the barrel but isn't ready to drink yet. And so eventually it will go into bottles and be shipped. And so you're buying a kind of a prepaid case of wine that'll be shipped to the door pretty much most of the places in the world, but not Utah because we're kind of like crazy. And then Bitsy is another one. And then Chainstone, which is Bruce's, has already issued equity for Chainstone, and that's already been transferred to Medici. So it's kind of tokenizing the ledger of ownership for Chainstone Labs. So,
brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. In terms of yourself, you've described yourself as a freedom advocate on Twitter.
Yep.
How does blockchain enable, I guess, individual and collective liberty?
in lots of ways. So that's one of the things. So it disintermediates middlemen, which helps, but it also allows you to do things. One of the things that at least disturbs me is that a lot of times money is used sort of as a limiter or a weapon. I know we in the U.S. we have this Operation Choke Point, which basically said, "Hey, we're going to kind of block off banking to these industries like payday loans and the gun industry and gambling industry and some of these, where they're just kind of making this arbitrary choice of like what's allowed, what's good, what's bad." In my view, if like gambling, I'll give you, just as an example, seems like, hey, it's my money. I should be able to risk it however I wish. I'm fully aware that, I'll probably lose money and the odds aren't in my favor, but that seems like a freedom type of thing. So the ability for, this to kind of end run and go around those limitations is a big deal.
100%. I guess, you're obviously the lead developer on Ravencoin. And I guess, is there anything else you're working on in the space?
Yes, the tech stack for civilization. So I'm going to help with that project.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And what's your, how does one go about building? That's a quite a incredible vision.
That is a huge vision.
Yeah.
And a little bit intimidating. So it's fairly new mission. And so what I hope is that we can find a country that needs it and find out what they need and take the pieces that we've invested in and put them together with something that ties them all together. There have been some other countries that have done things like this that kind of started with technology and have done very well with it. And so modeling some of the things with them, but including they're not using blockchain. And so blockchain kind of adds another layer of capabilities that we can do. And so tying in voting and land governance and borrowing against land that's been put on the blockchain because it's kind of a good record, that's kind of the goal. But yeah, you're right. It's a huge task.
Massive.
Yeah.
Last two things. What are you most excited about in 2019?
2019, I'm excited about the specifically for Ravencoin, I'm excited about the tags and restricted assets. So this allows a capability that currently doesn't exist in Ravencoin and sort of exists in the ERC20 world, but we think we can do it a little bit better. So one of the problems you have right now is with a STO. An STO is really just an ICO with kind of a legal wrapper around it. But one of the legal wrapper things is they want to know who's moving these and kind of restrict it. So we're moving it amongst people that we kind of know are not terrorists or not bad guys or whatever. And then for that you kind of have to know who they are to kind of know that they're not they're not a terrorist. And so tags and restricted assets allows you to do that. You can have we'll call them a qualifier. Which would be somebody who does KYC or AML or accredited invest, check to see if they're accredited, and then tags an address. It says, okay, your address has been tagged. You can now accept tokens, and that when the token is issued, now you say this token is issued, but it's only going to go into addresses that have been tagged with KYC, tagged with AML, tagged they're not a terrorist, whatever, right? And then that token will then move amongst addresses that have been properly tagged. And you can use that for securities, but you can also use it for subscriptions. An example would be, I've got these game tokens, and they can only move amongst game subscribers. So they're paying the $10 a month game subscription fee or something like that. Their address is tagged. You can move games, and people can, kind of limited to all the people that are subscribers or club members or VIP members or whatever this restriction is. And then when they get those tags and they get the assets that are restricted, if they lose the tag for whatever reason, they don't lose the asset, which means they could still resell it. They can send it, but they can't get more, right? That are restricted like that. So that's what I'm most excited about. I think it opens up a whole new world of things. We've talked to some people recently that needed that exact capability, and so they're excited about it too. So.
Brilliant. Yeah. Now we ask everyone, end of the year, it's midnight, New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
What do you think the price of Bitcoin will be in US dollars?
U.S. dollars. So this is totally a guess. I do think that we are.
This is not financial advice, by the way.
Not financial
We don't do
advice.
financial advice on this show.
It's just a speculation on my part. I do think we're ending crypto winter. I think we're kind of in a crypto thaw, crypto spring. I think that's happening now. I think this will accelerate in October. Was kind of my date that I kind of proposed earlier, and I still think we're headed towards that. I'm going to take a guess of $8,426.37 GMT.
GMT. That's cold. That was cold. Tron, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing all your wisdom and helping our community understand more about Ravencoin, and wish you obviously the best of luck.
Thank you.
with
Thank you for
2019.
having me. It's been great being here.
Awesome.
I appreciate it.
All right, guys, that is Tron Black at Ravencoin, and you can obviously subscribe to the channel and hear more from the Daily Exchange. All right, guys. Yeah.